Hello, it's my Eurovision 2021 grand final reaction and reflections. Welcome to Matt Loves Eurovision. Please do, as always, like, share, comment, and like below. As you can see, I'm recovering a little bit from last night. You don't normally see me in glasses, but yes, I rolled in about 3 o'clock last night because I missed my last train, not because I was out especially late partying. But I just thought it'd be an opportunity to bring a few sort of thoughts and reactions to how things went last night. I thought it was just such a joy to have Eurovision back. Obviously I've been watching the semi-finals and all the rehearsals and stuff. But to have the grand final always feels something special, and I think the Dutch hosts did a really great job. Very professional, very sort of brisk as well, and great staging, and just the right. They got they got the right feel. I really enjoyed the bringing back kind of previous entries from quite a long time ago, like Lenny Keur, who's one of the 1969 winners from Netherlands, singing the Troubadour on that rooftop. That was one of those. I really liked that particular moment. But obviously, the big story is that Italy has finally won again, which is their third victory, and it's the first time in over 30 years that Italy have won, and they won by winning the televote. They by quite some margin, which I think people had perhaps predicted or perhaps expected, but it was obviously had it confirmed as well. And as I said in my previous video and in my blog post, that Måneskin and their genre of music is not my genre of music, but do respect that they are really quality and how popular they are. And I'm really pleased for Italy to win, because I think Italy has consistently put in high quality, authentic acts over the past 10 years since their return in 2011. It just feels like the victory has been really overdue. So now perhaps, given the last time that Italy hosted in 1991 is kind of infamous in Eurovision lore for being one of the most chaotic Eurovisions ever, I think that probably won't be the case this time. It'll certainly be a different flavour from some of the more recent Eurovisions. I think it's been really exciting to see Italy does with it, and where it will be hosted as well. That's another question. Well, we don't. I guess we'll find out in the coming months. I think in terms of kind of what I sort of said about what were the likely contenders, it actually fitted quite well with what happened in the results. So in the bookies' favourites were France and Italy, and that indeed was what happened. France coming second. They came second in the jury vote and second in the televote, and second overall, one of their best results for quite some time. And other than that, we had some of the other contenders that I talked about yesterday also did very well. So Switzerland, which was one of my favourite songs, won the jury vote, and did okay in their televote, but enough to finish third. Again, one of their best placings for albums. They did well in 2019, but have gone even better this time. We had Iceland doing really well, as we hoped that they would. Not quite enough to win, but a fourth place is one of Iceland's best placings for over a decade. And Ukraine had come up from quite low in the betting and votes to storm through, and again they got a huge televote, as again we thought that would be the case to make up the top five. We also had Malta doing well, finishing seventh, but given that was one of the pre-show favourites, maybe that's perhaps feels a little bit of a disappointment, but seventh is still a really good result, and again one of Malta's best results for a while. Did really well in the jury vote. Again, Malta just didn't do as well in the televote, and not quite sure why that is. It did go early in the running order. Maybe that had an influence. But it was still enough to get a top 10 result, and they're one of the best ones. And then my other sort of my favourite from this year, which was Lithuania. Now they didn't get a vote, but they got a good televote, and they finished eighth overall, which is Lithuania's best result for a very long time. Not enough to We Are the Winners as their best ever result, but it's certainly one of Lithuania's best results for a while. So I'm pleased that they did well, and I think people really, and certainly in the where we watched it, which was at the Vauxhall Tavern, I think people really enjoyed that. I got a really good reaction. Now, I mentioned I had a couple of wild cards, and one of them came true. The other one did not, and I'll come on to that a bit later. But one of the wild cards I said was Finland. I thought that could have gone big, and indeed it did go big in the televote, finishing 6th overall. So that was again one of Finland's best results for quite some time, which shows that kind of that rock pop really does seem to work for them. We also had a good result, Portugal getting a good result, finishing 12th, did very well with the juries again, as we thought it might do. Obviously not quite as well with the televote, but enough to give it a good result. In terms of kind of my biggest disappointment, aside from, we'll talk about my own country's results shortly, but my biggest other disappointment was San Marino. Not for their performance, because I loved it and I still love it, and I thought Senate and Flo Rida was a great show closer, but surprisingly it didn't do anywhere near as well in the televote as I expected. I wasn't sure how it would perform in the jury, but I really thought that the televote would be bigger for it, because poor tiny San Marino doesn't have any, I don't know, it doesn't really have anyone to vote for it as a natural sort of neighbour. I mean, Italy never votes for San Marino for some reason, but yeah, it was disappointing how small their televote was, and I thought it would beat Serhat's Say Now Enough, but it wasn't to be, sadly. But I think perhaps maybe everyone really enjoyed it, loved it as a show, liked the show closer, but didn't feel enough to vote for it. Also, and I think this is worth remembering, is that myself and a lot of my friends all live either in a kind of a Eurofan bubble, and also we are from a particular demographic, and the Saturday night television, the voting public is quite a different demographic from that, and hence why songs that I think sometimes that you might not think, why is Italy or Finland so popular, but in the wider public those are very popular. And so it's just understanding that Eurovision does appeal to a very broad range of people, not just the kind of sort of narrower sort of fields that I exist in. And so things like San Marino, which we thought, that'd be absolutely amazing, maybe that just didn't land as well in that wider sense. And the same goes with something to a lesser extent with something like Cyprus. Cyprus was a huge fan favourite, and I think it finished 16th, which isn't a bad result at all, but probably not quite what they were expecting as much, or perhaps they expected more. And again, you wonder whether you get caught up in that sort of bubble of what we think will do well. But I think generally we kind of knew what the main contenders were, and that kind of seemed to bear out. The one great mystery is how Moldova did so well. I'm still scratching my head over that. It did finish well had a good result in the grand final. I think, just checking, I think it may have finished around 13th or so. And also very interestingly, it seemed to get a lot of 12 points from the televote in its semi-final, which if I have a quick check, I think it received it from about 7 or 8 countries in its semi-final, which seems quite extraordinary in its way. It wouldn't be the sort, I wouldn't have put it. Yes, Moldova got 12 points from 8 countries, including France, Czech Republic, Estonia, Latvia, Greece, Portugal, San Marino, and Serbia. All gave Moldova 12 points in the televote in the semi-final, which is not something that I perhaps would have expected. So that's interesting to see how that happened. But moving on from that, not so much from the grand final, but I think we've had the results, some of the breakdown of results come out. We see that, as expected, Croatia really just narrowly lost out on qualifying for the final, lost out to Norway. Norway got 10 points from Azerbaijan, so all of that, the televote of Azerbaijan, so all of that stuff with Effendi and ticks in the social media, and seemed to pay off, because those points brought Norway into the final. And meant that Croatia did not make it. And I have to talk about, obviously, my own country, the UK. I obviously talked a bit about it in my previous video about it. obviously, I'm not. I feel so much for James because he's such a lovely, lovely guy, and I think that showed as well. Even when he was being ritually humiliated by getting no points and having it put, and I'm not entirely convinced that is the nicest way of doing it, because obviously he wasn't the only one that got no points in the televote. But is that the nicest way of doing it? But he took it in good heart, and that's. I mean, I think it goes back to what I said yesterday. I think you can have a good song, which I think Embers is, but it can come perhaps a bit middle of the road, and the production and the staging just isn't up to scratch, frankly. Compared to, if you look at the quality of that final, a really high quality final, and I think that's been quite widely said, and I think even by people outside of the kind of normal Eurovision side of things have said that. How impressive the final was, and then you kind of look at that and it just looks, and this isn't James's fault, it's the production side of things, it just looks a little bit cheap and tacky and a bit outdated. And I keep saying this, you need to be bold. The big five, obviously France and Italy have done this, but the big five need to be bolder and take risks and be authentic. Now that doesn't always work, because Germany got no points from the televote for the second Eurovision in a row, and they were bold. I mean, it was definitely a Marmite song, Germany's song. It didn't pay off. I thought they would get some televote points, but that did not happen. I'm going to just ignore all of the stuff that will inevitably be said about, oh, Europe hates us, no one likes us. It's like, that's just rubbish. As I've said lots before, it doesn't really matter. I mean, without getting too political, you have you have things going on in the Middle East at the moment that are quite divisive, should we say, and yet we have countries still getting points. Israel still gets points. So, I don't think you can talk about the B. I'm not even going to mention the B word. It's got nothing. But the UK press and the general discussion but this has been the same for the past 35 years. It's been the same. Even back in 1988, a chat show was saying why does Europe hate us when we lost by 1 point and finished second? I mean, it's ridiculous. So, what it does worry me is that where does the UK go from here, particularly in that attitude? Because, how do you persuade kind of artists to keep putting themselves forward, thinking that they're not going to do well? But they can do well. They can genuinely do well. But it's got to be something that's a bit bolder and more authentic, I think. And I think the same goes for Germany and Spain. It's not just a UK problem. It's if you look, the UK has now come last in the last two Eurovisions. Germany has received no points from the televote for the last two Eurovisions, and Spain has also been in the bottom five for the last two Eurovisions. Now, some might say, and I know people that I know have said this, that it's ridiculous. The big five should have to qualify from the semi-finals to make them actually try. And I'm not entirely convinced that they don't try. It's just that they haven't quite got it right. But I have to say, I don't believe that making the big five go through the semi-finals is the right answer, because it would be it just doesn't make, from a musical sense, you can see there's a justification for it, but just from a pure commercial success of a sense, that doesn't make sense. Because if you have Germany, UK, Spain not qualifying for the grand final, you've lost three of the biggest audiences for the main Saturday night, and that's just not. And also, the big five do financially support a lot of the other countries in terms of those Eurovision in their being able to enter Eurovision. And so, if they didn't get through, or they just said, well, we're not, if we can't be in the final, we can't guarantee that for our viewers, then we won't be in. That pulls the rug out from Eurovision, really. And this is why after Germany didn't qualify in 1996, they thought we're not going through this again. So I don't know. It's I think I'm sure I could talk much further about this, but I just think it's the upping of the game is to look at what some of those other countries are doing in kind of the music they're putting through, the artists, the authenticity, the production, all the whole lot. And just putting in a decent track isn't going to be enough, because middle of the road just doesn't cut through. in a grand final of 26 songs. So there we go. But I hope James is okay. He's been such a fantastic ambassador, and it was quite heartening, although probably not necessarily strictly. Oh no, they would have run tests. Actually, it's fine. Seeing him and Jendrik and Blaz all kind of hugging and supporting each other, I thought that was a really nice thing, which is a mark of him. And I don't have any worries about James. He is such a prolific songwriter that I think he will be doing okay for himself, whatever things have in the future. So yes, that was another took more time than I was expecting that I would ramble on, particularly when I'm half asleep, half dead at the moment, as I'm having like 2 hours sleep. But I hope you've enjoyed all my Eurovision 2021 videos. Obviously, you can go look back on them now and see how wrong I was about some of them and how right I was on others. This will probably be the end of these kind of daily videos for a little bit. I'll get back into doing probably weekly videos in the near future, looking at doing top fives of countries, my favorite top 5 songs from particular countries and various things like that. So do be sure to check in, and please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, because that's a big help to me. But anyway, for now, take care, and we'll see you soon.